Good morning. Welcome back to Open Med School. I am Dr. Andrews, Professor of Medicine and Consultant Neurologist. In the last session, we have discussed about systolic murmurs. Today, I will be discussing with you the basics of diastolic murmurs. So, first, we should understand what is diastole. We will identify diastole by looking at the second heart sound. So, how the second heart sound is produced? Second heart sound occurs when the blood ejected into the aorta and pulmonary artery tries to come back, and at that time the aortic and pulmonic valves closes. This closure of the aortic and pulmonic valve produces the second heart sound, denoted as two lines A2 and P2. So after the second heart sound, this is the diastole. At the end of diastole, the ventricle starts contracting, and this will produce closure of the atrioventricular valves, that is the mitral valve and the tricuspid valve. This produces the S1. And this period is diastole, and after the S1, it is the systole. So the diastolic murmurs occur between S2 and S1. So first thing you should understand. Now we look into mechanism of production of the diastolic murmurs. Depending upon the time, the diastolic murmurs can be divided into which occurs in the early part of diastole. It is called early diastolic murmur. So that the murmur will be occurring at this part. This is called the early diastolic murmur. The murmur that occurs in the middle is called mid-diastolic murmur. The murmur that occurs at the last part is called, it is just before systole, so it is called pre-systolic murmur or late systolic murmur. So how will you classify diastolic murmurs? You divide into which occurs in the early part of diastole, early diastolic murmur, which occurs in the mid part, it is called mid-diastolic murmur, which occurs in the later part, late diastolic, or as it is before systole, it is called pre-systole. Now we look at what is the mechanism of early diastolic murmur. Early diastolic murmur occurs due to leakage of blood occurring or regurgitation of blood occurring during early part of diastole. So this occurs either at the aortic valve or at the pulmonary valve. When the aortic valve and pulmonary valve are incompetent, when the blood tries to come back, it is unable to close and the valves are not closing properly, the blood leaks and it leaks to the left ventricle or to the right ventricle. So what are the conditions producing early diastolic murmur? There are only two conditions. One is the aortic regurgitation and the pulmonary regurgitation. This murmur will be like this. So it is a decrescendo murmur. Maximum regurgitation occurs in the beginning. So that is why it is a decrescendo murmur. The intensity comes down. Hope it is clear to you. The early diastolic murmurs are two. One is the aortic regurgitation. Second is the pulmonary regurgitation. Next mechanism, it is occurring during the diastolic flow. So that is during diastasis, blood from the left atrium enters the left ventricle, from the right atrium it enters the right ventricle. Suppose this valve is narrow. So take this is the mitral valve. Suppose this mitral valve is stenosed or the tricuspid valve is stenosed. It is called mitral stenosis and tricuspid stenosis. What will happen? The pressure inside the left atrium will be increasing high because this valve orifice is narrow, and the blood entering through the narrow orifice will produce turbulence, and this produces murmur. And what is the feature of this murmur? This murmur occurs in the middle of diastole, so it is called a mid-diastolic murmur. So this mid-diastolic murmur occurs when there is a diastolic flow going across the mitral valve or tricuspid valve. So it classically occurs in mitral stenosis and tricuspid stenosis. We know that the left atrium contracts and the right atrium also, both of them contracts at the later part of diastole. So this part, just before the systole, it contracts. This contraction is called atrial key, contributes to around 30% of the blood flow to the ventricles. So if the mitral valve is narrow, what can happen during the end of diastole or during pre-systolic period? There is excess flow occurring, and you will get what is this murmur, that is the pre-systolic murmur. If there is a mid-diastolic murmur, that murmur can get accentuated, so it is called a pre-systolic accentuation. And point to be remembered is that only if the patient is in sinus rhythm, you can get this. So today we have discussed about the mechanism of diastolic murmurs. They are divided into 3 types: early diastolic, mid-diastolic, and pre-systolic. Early diastolic murmur occurs at the level of aortic and pulmonary valve. So they are aortic regurgitation, pulmonary regurgitation. Mid-diastolic murmur occurs due to the during diastolic flow across a stenotic atrioventricular valve, that is mitral and tricuspid stenosis. Pre-systolic accentuation occurs due to the atrial contraction, that is when the blood is passing across the narrow valve, it can produce a rumbling sound. It is called a pre-systolic accentuation. The details of the description, how to examine, etc. will be, and the etiology will be discussed in next session. Hope it was useful.